What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight we are in the shop and we are going to be putting a suspension system on this JLU. So this is a 2018 JLU that I'm going to be installing for a customer. And this thing looks pretty good. And this one is pretty much factory, I believe. So he said the suspension is back here. Oh yeah. Perfect. So whenever I'm doing a suspension system on a vehicle and it comes in a kit, what I like to do is just lay everything out. That way I can make sure that everything is there. Just making sure that, you know, I have 4 shocks, 4 coil springs, and everything that's on the packing list, I can visually see at one time. That way I don't start this suspension kit for a customer and then I'm missing something and then it's stuck on my lift for 2.5 weeks because something's on back order. I've been burned in the past, but Clayton's always been really good about making sure that they send the right stuff out. So good job, Clayton. So let me show you what we got going on. Obviously, these are the coil springs. These are the front. These are the rear. Got the front shocks, the rear shocks. I have the front sway bar links, the rear sway bar links. I have the front upper control arms. That is the driver's side. And then have the track bars. This is the Steer Smarts track bar brace and the steering box brace. And it even comes with the bearing that goes onto the steering box. So we'll be putting that on. And that's all the hardware that's included there. So definitely check them out, Steer Smarts. So everything is here that we need, except for the wheels and tires. They're on the way. But I don't know. I'm excited about this. I think it's going to look really good. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get the Jeep on the lift, and I'll probably go ahead and remove the tires and wheels and get them stacked up just to kind of get them out of the way for right now. Alright, so I have all 5 tires off. He is going to go with a matching spare, as he should. So the first thing that I'm going to do is probably go ahead and knock out the front suspension. And in order to start this, what I'm going to do, loosen up these brake lines here. That's pretty much the first thing that you want to do, because you want to undo these brake cables, and then probably the sway bar links and probably the shocks after that. I'm going to go ahead and take a, what is this, 15 millimeter and a breaker bar and go ahead and break this loose. So now that it's broke loose, I can use my ratchet. I just don't like to put too much wear and tear on these because I like to break these for some reason. Alright, push that out of the way. I'm going to put that right back on. is take an 18mm wrench and put right there. And then I'm going to take an 18mm socket and a breaker bar and go ahead and break that loose. So I've got some vice grips on this right here so it doesn't spin with it, but I'm going to take the 18mm nut off the back of the upper sway bar link. So I've got the front axle now supported with the jack. That way I can have a little bit more control of what the suspension is going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and get this lower shock bolt out and get that 18mm wrench on that. Then I'll get my breaker bar right here. Alright, so I'm getting the wrench up here so it kind of goes up against the axle there. Kind of holds that for me. So now that I've got it broke loose, I'm just going to go ahead and get my ratchet on here. Just like that. And just for the time being, I'm going to be putting the bolt and the nut right back on so I don't lose them. The top of these shocks, the bolt that goes inside of this inner fender right here is also an 18mm. I've seen some people, they say you have to take these out, but you shouldn't have to. See? Easy. Now that I have the shock out of the way, I'm going to actually go to the passenger side and get the sway bar link out, the shock out, and the brake line bracket off. So I have everything off on this side, just like I do the driver's side. And so now what I'm going to do is lower the axle down so that I can get to the upper control arms on this. Whenever you start lowering axles down, you want to just keep tabs on everything. So like right here, this vent tube is getting just a little tight. I mean, it's not bad, but you just want to keep an eye on stuff like that. Like if it was routed around wrong or something, you wouldn't want to snatch it out. But all these are still loose. I could still come down some more, but the things are starting to loosen up a little bit now. So I'm gonna get these coil springs out. So now that I have the coil springs out, I'm going to get the control arms off on the top right here. These are called the upper control arms. I'm going to take these off. So these are also 18mm. So I've got the bolt just chilling in the front. So on the upper control arm bolt, you actually have to get this heat shield out of the way. That is a 10mm. So underneath the Jeep, you can see right here, now with that heat shield out of the way, you can get to this 18mm bolt right here. I hope you can see that on camera. There we go. So I'm going to take my 18mm socket and get that out. Alright, so we got the front bolt out, and now I'm going to get the back one out. So So whenever this loosens up, this tab right here will fall out. And you can see the back side of the bolt right here. Comes right out. Then the control arm comes out. Cool. So now I'm going to go to the other side and get the other control arm out the exact same way that I did this one. Next thing that I'm going to be taking off is the upper track bar bolt, and it is a 21 millimeter. All right, now I'm going to get the bottom side off. So the next thing that I'm going to do is actually finish taking off this nut right here for the pitman arm. And I'm using one of the Barnes tools right here to get it off because I don't have the correct size socket, but it's coming off pretty good. Now that I have the nut off the power steering box for the pitman arm, I'm going to get ready to get this Steer Smarts steering brace and sector shaft brace on. I'm going to be using the 2 longer bolts and then the 2 shorter bolts. The 2 longer bolts will go in the front, the 2 shorter bolts will go in the back, and then this right here is the new track bar bolt, and of course here is the new sector shaft bearing. So with the coil spring out of the way, it's pretty easy to get to these 2 bolts right here, but on your Jeep, you may actually have to take a ratchet strap and pull the coil spring back just a little bit to give you some clearance. So these, just like pretty much everything else on this front end's been so far, are 18 millimeter. You go ahead and take these out. I'm going to actually take the Steer Smarts bracket and go ahead and get into place. I've got it lined up. I'm going to go ahead and run the new track bar bolt through just to kind of hold it on. Alright. I'm going to start with one of these long bolts and make sure that you have the split washer on first and then the big washer. And I'm actually going to put just a little bit of Loctite, a little bit more, just about like that. Alright, so I've got that one started. Now I'll do the same thing to the other one. So the next thing that we're going to do is get the new pitman arm nut on, and you can see right here where it just screws on, and I am going to put some red Loctite on this. I apologize to whoever has to take this back off in the future for any reason. So before you put this on, you want to make sure you put this washer on, because that goes on first. Alright, now I'm going to take an 1 5/8 inches and go ahead and send that on. So I have that torqued down properly, And next thing I'm going to do is get the sector shaft brace on. So I am actually going to put just a little bit of anti-seize all around this. So how this goes on is the flat section, you see this has kind of got a taper to it right here, but the flat section actually goes towards the front of the vehicle. So it goes on just like that. And I may have to put y'all down, and I may have to use a mallet to get this on. So once you get the sector shaft brace bearing on, you can actually start some of these bolts right here, and that's just going to actually hold it on. Just like that. And there's one on the front, just like it. So we'll get that one on now. So the last step is to take this ring and just go around . So that's everything for the Steer Smarts track bar brace and power steering box brace. The next thing that I'm going to do is get these upper control arms on. So as you can see, these are adjustable, and the adjustments that the Clayton website says that we need is 19.875 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that out and get these to the correct length, and I'm going to go ahead and get the driver's side on first. So whenever you measure these, you want to make sure that you measure from the center of the bolt hole here to the center of the bolt hole on the other end. And I've got these both to 19.875 inches, and so now they're ready to go on. So they go on like this. So the angle kind of is pointing down, and obviously, like I said before, this is the driver's side, so just make sure you get that correct. And then we'll be using the factory hardware to put these back in. So I'm going to get the camera set up, and then I'm going to get up under the Jeep and we'll get these in. So now that I have the driver's side upper control arm on, I'm going to go to the passenger side, but I'm not going to tighten down anything or torque down anything with this one until I get it down on its own weight, and I can actually check the caster of the front axle. That way I know this thing's going to be steering straight. Now I'm going to get these coil springs in the front, and you can see the part number right here. Make sure that it's right side up. And I'm going to feed this up. Drop it right down right here on the perch, and make sure on the isolator that you are all the way forward, so that way it's sitting on this isolator the way that it needs to. And the same way on the passenger side. So you can see it kind of falls into that isolator just nicely. Alright, so now I'm going to pick the axle up with the jack and get the front track bar in. So I'm going to grab the front track bar here. I already have it measured out to 34.09 inches. And on this one, I'm going to be using the factory bolts also. And make sure you put the factory tab on the back of that. Set this down. On the top track bar part, I'm actually going to take out the Steer Smarts bolt and go ahead and get the track bar up here. So you can see I'm gonna have to come way up with this front axle before I can get this lined up. So just a little tip, whenever you are raising and lowering the axle and you have it on a lift, make sure that you have a jack stand up underneath the rear of the vehicle. That way it doesn't try to bring the vehicle off the lift. And I'm gonna be putting the nut from Steer Smarts on. And I'm not gonna tighten this until I have the Jeep back on its own weight and I can double check that the axle is centered up under the Jeep. So now that I have the track bar in, I'm gonna get the shocks in. And these are really nice shocks, by the way. And so I'm gonna kind of feed this up so it goes in just like this, and then you put a bolt in. So I have the shock pushed in to the bracket here, and I'm simply just gonna kind of wiggle the axle just a little bit. Go ahead and get the nut on the back, and you can go ahead and tighten these on up. And since I'm right here, I'm gonna go ahead and connect this bracket back. And to be honest with you, if you were going to be doing a lot of rock crawling, trail riding, articulations, or articulating, I wouldn't put this back on. I would figure out another way to reroute this or make this longer. But I believe this one's just gonna be kind of a daily driver, so I feel comfortable putting this back on the way it was, so that's what I'm gonna do. Look at all these shiny parts. So now that I have the shock on, I'm gonna go to the opposite side and get the shock on over there, and then we'll get these sway bar links on. All right, so that's pretty much as far as we can go on the front for right now, because really everything else, I need the Jeep at ride height. So in order to get the sway bar links the correct length, I need to get the Jeep where it's gonna be sitting, and I can't really do that with, you know, no tires and wheels on, and I don't have anything on the back done yet. It's still all stock. So what I'm gonna do now is start tearing down the back. I've got pretty much everything buttoned up right here for right now. So I went ahead and picked the Jeep on up, and I supported the rear axle with my transmission lift, and then of course I have my little safety jacks on too that I need to tighten up. So what I'm planning on doing first is getting these shocks out of the way, and then I can get to these sway bar links and get those out of the way. So behind this little flap right here, you can get to the top shock bolt. So now I'm going to work on getting these sway bar links out of the way. So I've got my vice grips on top, and then I've got my impact. I'm going to try to get this sway bar link off at the top. Just like that. Try to get this track bar off, and I'll be using a 21 millimeter So I'll be doing the same thing at the top or the frame side of the track bar. Now I'm going to try to get these springs out without killing myself. And just be looking for brake lines, vent tubes, emergency brakes and stuff like that when you're lowering the axle down. Ah, easy. So I'm going to take the rear spring and make sure that my numbers are right side up, and I may have to kind of do some pressing. Let me lower this axle down just a little bit. Alright, and don't make the mistake that I just did and put the left spring on the right side. So these do have part numbers, and you can see right here they are left and right. So just make sure that you are putting the correct spring on the correct side. So I forgot how long these rear track bars are on the JLUs, but I'm going to be measuring this one out to 37.86 inches. This aggravating plastic piece out of the way. I should have done that to begin with, but I was being lazy. So I'm gonna just put this 18mm bolt in. Bottom of the shock, just gonna pull this over, push that in. Get the nut on the back side and tighten it up. So that is pretty much everything on the rear except for the sway bar links, and of course I can't do that until it's back on its own weight. So what I may do is, oh, I gotta put this cover back on. I gotta put that cover back on. But what I may do after that is I may actually throw the tires back on it, and because the 35s haven't come in yet, but I don't want this just sitting on my lift for half of a week whenever I'm just waiting on tires to come in. You know, I need to get this out because I need to get other vehicles in. So what I may do is I may go ahead and get the tires on and then put it down on its own weight and see what it looks like. And then I can go and torque everything down properly. So instead of putting the tires back on where I wouldn't have a lot of accessible to get to the sway bar links, what I did is I totally forgot I had jack stands that I could use. That was dumb. But so I've got it sitting on jack stands right now, replicating ride height. All the weight on the suspension is on the axles right now, which is what I'm looking for. So in the kit, it does come with all of the sizes that you'll need to cut. So we have the 2.5 inch lift here. This is the measurements where we need to cut. So I'll be doing that now with the bandsaw and getting this thing all ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get the one started on the top. I'll get the one on the bottom started. So what you want to do is get an 18mm wrench and then get a Allen wrench right here. Start tightening it up. So then you do the same thing for the one on the top. I got the passenger side all cut and made, and this side you can see is just a little different because there's a heim joint because of the track bar placement at the axle end. So as you can see, it is just a little different. What you do is you put the heim joint on the inside, and then you put the two spacers that is provided with the kit on the outside, and then send the bolt through, put the nut on the back, and put the top end right here just like you did on the other side. Start the bolt right here, get one of the misalignment spacers on, then put the heim joint in, and then slide this other one just like that. just like so. And then you're going to be putting this tab on the end. That's the factory tab, and it's the factory bolt. So now I'll be working on the rear sway bars for this, and according to the instructions, JL rear sway bar, I will be cutting off 1.656 inches off each end. All right, so now I'm going to get these jam nuts on. So once you have everything on here, you want to get this adjusted to 11 3/4 for the rear, which is what I have right here. So now I'm ready to install this on the Jeep. Since I know this is the correct measurement, you can actually move this up and down just a little bit and then just send it right through the hole, and then take the 18mm nut and go on the back side of it. Oh, come on. And tighten that up. So on the back side of this right here, this is what it looks like. It's kind of hard getting the camera in there, but there's a 5mm Allen wrench, and then this is 18. So what I like to do is just get the gear wrench on here, and then the Allen wrench, and then you can spin the gear wrench just like you need to. So that's what I'm going to do on here. So I like to wait to tighten up these jam nuts until it's actually on the vehicle. And so what you want to do is get the first one tight, and then just take a 19mm wrench. So you just kind of grab like an adjustable or something. You can just kind of tighten that up, and then we'll do the same thing for the bottom one here. So everything is pretty much completed on the rear sway bar. Got to torque everything down once I get it back on its own weight, but of course the tires and wheels still haven't shown up yet, so I'm not sure what we're gonna do. So I had a brilliant idea. Everybody knows the TJ build here has Rock Tricks wheels set up for a JLU and 37s, so we are gonna throw some 37s on this and see what they look like. And before anybody attacks me in the comments, I did contact the owner of the Jeep. He actually came by here earlier, and I did get permission to put the 37s on his Jeep. So he was definitely cool with it as long as I sent him some pictures. So let's see what they look like. So we're going to take this JLU on the first test drive with the 37s, and it's not scrubbing. The steering wheel is a little cockeyed, but I mean, I can fix that in the shop. But I mean, man, this thing rides really good, and it hasn't even had an alignment yet. So the test drive, I think, went great. What I'm going to do now is go home and straighten up the steering wheel. I'm going to adjust the drag link. I'll show you how to do that. But other than that, it just needs an alignment and it needs the 35s to come in. That way I can put these tires back on the other Jeep. But anyway, we're gonna head to the shop now and see if we can get this drag link adjusted. So now that we're back in the shop, we're gonna be adjusting the drag link, and I'll show you how we'll be doing that. So with a 15mm wrench, you can get right here on this collar. Go ahead and loosen that up. So the easiest way that I've found to adjust this is just get a pipe wrench and just real slow in the adjustments. And so what I'm doing is adjusting this out, and that way it makes the drag link just a little longer, and that'll be straightening up the steering wheel. Now that I have the steering wheel straight and the wheels straight, everything is in line there, I'm going to tighten up that 15mm nut that is on the adjusting collar on the drag link. I've kind of already gone over everything. I'm going to go over everything one more time while it's sitting on its own weight, just to make sure everything is torqued, everything is tight, and that I feel comfortable with somebody leaving my shop with this Jeep with their kids in the back. So like I said, I'm going to go over everything one more time just to double check everything is torqued correctly. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this video. I really appreciate you watching me put the suspension system from Clayton on this JLU and the 37s. So if you would like to get some Rock Tricks wheels just like I put on this JLU, even though they're not staying on, but if you would like to get some for yourself, make sure that you check out rocktricks.com. You can actually use the discount code 6feetunderfab and get a certain % off. So definitely check them out. I will put a link to these wheels in the description below. Make sure that you like the video and that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on any more of the content coming from this shop. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. The test drive, I think, went great.